it's Mia here and welcome back to another bookish video. Now today we are going to be talking about a book that you already know I've gotten. And that's You've Reached Sam by Dustin Theo? Sorry if I mispronounced the last name. But You've Reached Sam is actually Dustin's breakout YA novel. And honestly, I can already tell you guys I am super excited to read more of his books. But let's get into what You've Reached Sam is about. You've Reached Sam is about a girlfriend named Julie that has lost her boyfriend of 3 years. And one day, desperate to hear his voice, she calls his voicemail. Twist is, he actually picks up the phone. And she's like, how is this possible? You're supposed to be dead. You're dead. You can't be answering the phone. But he's like, I'm telling you, this is real. This is me. This is Sam. I'm here. I answered because you needed me and because you called. And from there, she starts to be like, well, is this all in my head? Am I going insane? Am I grieving from losing you? And none of that is really a spoiler because it tells you right off the bat on the about part of the book that one day she calls Sam and he does pick up the phone despite being dead. So, if you don't want spoilers from here on out, please leave this video now, go and read this book because it is absolutely a great read, and then come back to this when you've read it because I don't want to spoil this book for any of you because it is oh so good. Now, assuming those of you who don't want spoilers are gone, let's get right into this. Now, this story will make you think about loss and loved ones you've lost. So if you're someone that has recently lost a loved one, then this book probably isn't for you because it very heavily goes into the topic of loss and it hits hard and it doesn't pull its punches. And I was crying within 30 pages of this book because it just makes you think, well, what if you never got the chance to say goodbye to someone you loved and then they never came home? Like, it makes you think about things in that perspective, like how you should never leave home angry because you never know if you're ever going to see that person again, or you should always tell your loved ones that you love them because you might never get that chance again. And that's what happened here. So we start out the book in like her memories through a dream. Now that's how this book handles showing Sam and Julie's relationship, is a lot of the times Julie will be asleep and will be dreaming about their past like dates and their past relationship beats. So we get a lot of, oh, Julie's asleep, now she's dreaming about Sam, or oh, now they're on the phone together and she's talking to Sam. So what happens is we start out in their memories and establishing how they met. He worked at a coffee shop, she worked at a bookshop, and she came in one day to get a coffee before work. And that's how their whole relationship started. They were together for 3 years before the fatal accident that caused Sam's death. And so his dying really hit Julie hard. And because she felt responsible for his death, she did not go to his funeral, she did not go to his wake. She wanted to erase all trace of him from her life because it just hurt her so much to see those things, both because she cared about him so much and because she felt like it was her fault that he died that night in that fatal car crash. So Julie, we see her kind of shutting everyone out and once again trying to erase everything of Sam from her life. She deleted his text messages, their pictures, threw away everything he ever gave her. And then, after she had thrown all that away, Sam's cousin gives Julie her yearbook. And it turns out one person signed her yearbook already. Who was that one person? It was Sam. And Sam talked about in that message, I know that your dreams have always been too big for this small town, and that one day you'll leave Ellensburg and go on to better things. But please do not forget Ellensburg and the memories we've made here, because they are still a part of you and a part of your journey. And I'm glad that for whatever reason, you ended up crossing paths with me and coming into my life, because I love you. So never forget that. And she reads that in her yearbook, the message from Sam, which was basically his dying wish was for her not to forget him. And that's all she's done at the start of the book, was delete their stuff from her life. And so she feels incredibly guilty that she was trying to erase all trace of him, because that's the exact opposite of what he wanted. So then she dips out of town and goes running, and then she's lost in the woods, and that's when she decides, I need to hear his voice again. I need to let him know I haven't forgotten. I need to apologize for being this horrible person, and I just need to hear his voice one more time, even if it's just a recorded message. So she calls his phone, expecting to get his voicemail, but he actually picks up. And of course she can't believe it. No one would believe it. Like, how is this happening? How am I hearing you? You're dead. Is this a prank? Is someone putting on this impression of Sam to get at me? But he started saying things only Sam, the real Sam, would ever know. So she's like, okay, this is real. So then they were talking, and he says, you can't call from any other phone. Only our phones are connected. And she goes, well, why is that? And he goes, honestly, I don't have the answers for you. I don't know how any of this works. I just picked up because you needed me right now. And so Julie then starts to become obsessed with these phone calls, like wanting to call all the time, waiting by the phone for it to ring. Her phone stops getting any normal texts or calls from her other friends. So they start to think maybe her phone malfunctioned, because everyone keeps saying, hey, I've texted you, I've called you, I've asked you to do things for me, but you haven't replied, and I don't know what's going on, I'm getting worried about you. And she's like, I didn't get any texts or calls. And she starts to wonder, maybe my connection with Sam over the phone is blocking my connection from everybody else, which it kind of is. But through these messages, or through these calls with Sam, she starts to kind of push everybody else out of her life because they wouldn't understand. And she's worried that if she tells someone, it will damage her and Sam's connection, because they have no idea how they're able to talk. And honestly, if it were me, I'd probably think I was going insane, or like, I don't know if I'd want to tell anybody, because I'm like, they will think I'm insane. I'm talking to my dead loved one over the phone. This is not normal. But he's saying stuff that only this person would know, and it's his voice, it's his mannerisms, it's him. But like, honestly, this book makes you ask the question, if you had one more chance to say something to someone you've lost, knowing they could hear you, what would you say to them? Or what would you do for them if you could? Because Julie and Sam never got to say goodbye. And that's one of the things that's hurting Julie the most, because not only does she feel responsible because Sam was coming to pick her up that night he died, and she wasn't answering his phone calls because she was mad at him for forgetting he needed to pick her up that day. She feels guilty that she killed him, even though the truck came into Sam's lane and there was nothing anyone could have done about it. But I don't know. I honestly don't know what I would say to someone if I had another chance to say it. Because you'd want to say a million things. You'd want to say, talk to them for hours to days. You wouldn't want that connection to be broken, which is exactly how Julie feels. But not only does it start to affect her life and her circle of friends, because she's pushing everybody away to keep this calls with Sam a secret, but it's also hurting Sam, because now that they're connected again, he can't move on. He can't continue forward into the afterlife because he's tethered to these calls and to Julie. And it's like, yes, you'd want to say more to the ones you've loved that you've lost, but is it worth hurting them to do that? And it's just, it makes you wonder the whole time, like, what if you didn't get the chance to say goodbye to someone you loved, but you got it after they were gone? Would you take it if you knew it would hurt them? Or would you let it go and let them move on? Because that's what Julie starts to realize. It's like, I'm hurting Sam by anchoring him here because I can't let him go. And it's about not only accepting that an accident was not your fault, it's about accepting that they are gone and moving on from that. Like, just because you've lost them does not mean they have no bearing on your life anymore, because the memories you make with people will always be a part of you, and they'll always be there in your life in one way or another, no matter how long they're gone. And that you need to accept that they're still with you despite not being able to physically be with them anymore. They have an impact on your life, or they wouldn't be so meaningful to you. And that's basically what it's about. It's about grieving and the want to hold on to someone that's gone, and that you don't need to hold on so tightly because they'll always be a piece of you. And it's just such a beautiful story and beautifully told. And I was in tears more than once because it does make you think about all of that different stuff. But oh my goodness, when I finished the book, I literally sat there hugging it to my chest, just thinking for a minute. And I can honestly say that this is the only book to ever make me sit there and hold it, thinking about this story and thinking about, like, if I've lost someone, what would I say to them if I had another chance? Or, like, stuff like that. I've had a book made me extremely angry to where I threw it at the wall after Anna Todd. That book sucked. But this book just, it took me a second. I had to just sit there and hug it and, like, in tears, thinking about the story again, because it is a relevant story. Lots of people experience loss, and not everyone gets to say goodbye. And it hurts. But that's life. It's not always fair. It's not always sunshine and rainbows and good times. Life can hit you hard. And it's just, it's not staying in the bad. It's remembering the good. And then learning to move on from that. And that's why I think this book is so good. Now, was it perfect? No. There were moments I was like, can I just, like, come in and pull Jolie out of this, because she's being a spoiled brat to almost everyone else just because of Sam and her connection. And I'm like, I want to pull her out of that and be like, you need to wake up, because she was being so selfish to her other friends, and I did not like that. And also, I noticed that there were a lot of grammatical errors in this, and a lot of doubling words, like of and off in the same thing. I don't know if that was an editing issue, but I noticed more mistakes in this book than I have any other book I've read. But that's okay. This is his first book. There might have been some editing errors, and those little grammatical errors did not affect the beauty of the story at all. And honestly, I really hope he continues writing, because I really cannot wait to read more of his books, because this story was just absolutely beautiful, and it's just the first book I ever read that made me sit there hugging it in tears for a good solid minute or two, because that story was just that impactful. So if you have not read this story yet, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful story, and it's just a great read. And fair warning, it may make you tear up a little bit. So if you're down for that, this is a good one to pick up. So, okay. The next book I'm going into, well, already a good chunk into, is Found by Margaret Peterson Haddix. I always want to call her Maddox. But Margaret Peterson Haddix, and that's Found, and that's because I finally have this entire series. After searching for it for middle school till today, I can finally read the full series. Thank you to my 6th grade reading teacher who made us read this as a curriculum. I've been searching for this stupid series since middle school, and I found it. So I don't know if you'll ever see this, but your fault. But yes, I finally found this series, and I cannot wait to start it. So that's it for me. And what are you guys reading right now? Have you had any emotional books that just put you in a spot where you just had to sit there and hold it? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Bye, guys.